It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Dottino and Marc Malusis with you for the next hour to talk New York Giants football. John Schmeelk will check in momentarily from the Senior Bowl as he is attempting to make his way back to New Jersey, and I hope his travels are a lot better than they were going out.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that was, 11, 12 hours in the airport. He said he basically had some burgers and fries and was an absolute disaster. So hopefully John is able to get back here to the Northeast pretty easily.
Our phone number is 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. You can also find us on the YouTube, New York Giants YouTube channel, as well as the Giants mobile app. You can hit us up on social media if you prefer at hashtag Giants Chat. Pearson will also monitor that. We come to you from the Giants Podcast Studio presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. And as always, if you're not watching or listening to the show live, it is available as part of the archive and the entire New York Giants podcast network on giants.com/podcasts, the Giants mobile app, and podcast platforms everywhere. Now that we got that out of the way, a couple of topics before we get to John. He'll be calling in momentarily, and we'll get his wrap-up from his excursions during the course of the last week and a half. We've got some more names which have been reported to be potential candidates for Giants jobs. We also have mock drafts that came out earlier this week from Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah. We can also talk about that stuff, as we have seen the Giants with the 5th overall pick attached to a bunch of very high-level prospects, Mark. And I think that's the beauty of picking 5. It stinks that when you're a bad team and you pick that high. But the other side, if you want to look for the silver lining, is you're probably going to get a really good player regardless.
Yeah, you want to hit on that pick, there's no doubt. And you want to get a high-impact player that can be a foundational piece for your organization moving forward, Paul. So, it's tough to see the organization go through the season that they just went through. But now the benefit, and this is what the NFL wants, obviously, is the turnaround. Parity is the word in the National Football League. Have the turnaround that you saw, down in Jacksonville. Turnaround that you saw in New England. Turnaround that you saw in Chicago. And if you're able to draft wisely and bring in a guy that can, instantly impact your team, maybe be a day one starter, that's your goal, that's your hope, aspiration with the 5th overall selection, that you're able to draft regardless of position, Paul, bring in that caliber of player and that he can impact your team day one.
Now, the first guy that I want to address in terms of the draft situation, the mock that came out from Mel Kiper just a few days ago, and this was one of the two, him and Jeremiah, the first 2 mocks that I've seen so far. They get earlier and earlier. At some point, someone's going to give us a mock on Thanksgiving, Mark.
Well, no doubt. But I love it. I love the mock drafts. I love the look ahead, especially in today's day and age of NIL, when you're looking at college football and the amount of money that players can make in entering that transfer portal and staying at their home college or transferring to another school, Paul. You don't exactly know who is entirely going to be in that draft class before it's finalized. And then what it is, you get into it to see exactly, because everyone cares about everything on everywhere when it comes to the National Football League. And when you specifically talk about the Giants, you obviously got areas of need that you'd like to see addressed early, and you'd like to draft a player here that becomes, a foundational piece, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, regardless of position. So I get into the drafts, and yes, can never be early enough for me when you start to look at whether it be Kiper, whether it be Daniel Jeremiah, whether it be Todd McShay. There's a lot of guys that go out there and do it and do a really good job. Schmeelk does a tremendous job of interviewing Tony Pauline, and the mock drafts are great.
For sure. Well, to no one's surprise, the Raiders, according to Mel Kiper Jr., will take Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza at number 1. But before we get to the rest of those mock draft items that we were discussing, we go down to Mobile, Alabama. At least I think that's where John Schmeelk is right now, as he tries to make his way back to New Jersey. John, how are things?
I'm good. I'm currently at the gate for my connecting flight through Atlanta.
Nice.
So I will be home shortly, much to the delight of my wife.
This is very good news. Very, very good news. And no delays on the board. The tote board says you're on time.
10 minutes. That's it. So good shape.
Oh, there you go. Very nice. Well, you'll arrive. It's like 15 degrees here. And tomorrow, I think the high is supposed to be like 4. I mean, so bundle up. I know you've been dealing with the chill down there in Texas, the chill down there in Alabama, John, but make sure you bundle up, and I'm sure your wife with the kids are going to be more than happy to basically say, you know what, daddy duty time. It's time for you to take over in the household.
Oh, this is what you call the handoff. It is daddy arrived.
Yes.
Here are your children, and I'll see you on Monday. How you doing?
All right, John. So before you give your wife the capsule as to what went on during your week and a half long trip, let's discuss it here, because between all the stuff you've done for draft season and now going to the Shrine and going to the Senior Bowl, you've been able to collect a whole meatloaf worth of stuff going into the Combine and the NFL Draft. I want to go big picture, because we know that you've got videos and you've got written stuff all over Giants.com for the last several days. But give me big picture if you can, John. What are maybe the top 2 takeaways that you are coming home with after going to both of these college all-star games?
I mean, I think in short, guys, this draft class is exactly what I thought it was going to be. It is not a strong draft class at the top. I think the guys that will go in the top 10 of this draft will normally be, picks 12 through 18 in a normal draft, or maybe like picks 8 through 15, something like that. It's just not a great draft at the top, right? So I think that's part of this. The other part that I learned is that, this is very much going to be a defensive front draft. And you look at the players that played the best this week, it was edge players, defensive tackles to a lesser extent, and then I thought linebackers had a really good week. So I think those are the spots where there's a lot of strength in this draft. The playmakers on offense, especially running back, are not great. There are some late round tight ends, like two-way tight ends that are pretty good, but other than Kenyon Sadiq, who was not at one of these games, I don't expect there to be a first-round tight end. Maybe not even a high second-round tight end in this group, to be honest with you. And, receivers, like most years, they're fine. I'm not sure if there's a pure number one in this draft. Tyson, I think, has the ability to be a number one, but his injuries are problematic. Carnell Lake, I think, is really good, too. He's kind of like T. Higginsy, if you kind of want to put him into a box, right? I think that's kind of the type of player that I think Carnell Lake kind of projects to be quite honest with you. There weren't any really surprises, to be honest with you. I think this draft is exactly what we thought it was going to be, and now we'll try to figure out how to parse through these players over the next couple months.
John, during the, as COVID affected us all, but it obviously affected the draft process as well. Past couple years, there have been, the kind of the feel that the strength of the NFL draft, rounds 3, 4, 5, maybe going back a couple years ago, right, where there's still really good quality players because due to the amount of time that they spent in college football, right? When you look at the strength of this draft, not from a position standpoint, how deep in quality do you think this draft goes?
Yeah, we're getting to the end of the COVID guys. I think there's 1 or 2 6-year guys in this year's draft class. Diego Pavia is one of them, right? The running back, Caden Black from Indiana, is another one. He's a 6-year player, had 4 years at JMU, and then 2 at Indiana. But you're getting to the end of that COVID group, right, where you might have some 6-year pros, some 24, 25-year-old guys coming out. But, yeah, look, while it's not great at the top, Moose, to your point, you're always going to be able to find guys later in the draft. So, yeah, I think you're going to be able to find some wide receivers into day 2. I think there's a bit of a fall-off once you get past, the top group of cornerbacks, and then you're going to have a bit of a drop-off to day 3. I think linebackers are pretty strong throughout. I think tight ends are pretty strong throughout. So I think, you're going to be able to find good players in rounds 3 and round 4. I don't think it's quite as deep as last year's draft where, Paul, if you remember, I think we were talking about, end of round 4. We were still going to be a fun guys we thought could start in the league.
We were.
I'm not sure we're going to be in that type of situation, but it is a fairly deep draft.
John, one of the positions that you really haven't talked a lot about in terms of positivity has been the offensive line. And we know the Giants would still like to get a little more fortification. They've got free agent issues that they're not sure about. It does trouble me a bit that you've mentioned a couple offensive linemen as we believe the cream of the crop are, but it doesn't sound like there's much depth there after you being at these 2 All-Star games.
No, this is not a great offensive line group in general. You're probably going to have 2 top 12 picks on the offensive line. Spencer Fano out of Utah, who's a very good player, and you're going to have Francis Noah out of Miami.
Yeah.
I think there's still some questions as to which one of those guys might go first. I think that's going to be an eye, beauty's in the eye of the beholder type of deal. Noah, I think, is going to be more of a right tackle, and Fano's more of a right tackle too. So there's not even like a franchise left tackle at the top of this draft, to be honest with you. Both guys are going to be right tackles. So once you get past those guys, you're not going to see many tackles. Maybe Caleb Lomu, who's, again, the teammate to Fano. I think that could be one of the guys. So, no, it is not. We've seen some of these offensive drafts with top 15, top 20 picks against 3 or 4 offensive tackles in that group. That is not going to be the case this year.
John, when you mentioned the other day when I did the show with Paul about connecting with players, guys that are easy to root for the audience out there, who did you, which prospects that you had an opportunity to spend time with did you really connect with that becomes kind of that something that maybe the Giant fan could follow along here to see exactly where their NFL journey lands them?
Oh, Moose, that is a great question, and really that's why I like going to these games, because I really think my experience meeting these kids, and 90% of them are just great kids, and you end up getting to know them and you end up rooting for them. So there are a couple guys that jumped out at me, and most of these interviews are going to be up on the John Fiddle podcast in the hour and 5-minute long interview compilation that posted yesterday. So
hour 40 on audio.
Yeah,
Pearson was timing you to the second, John.
Well, on the audio version, it's a little bit longer because you had some audio only. That is absolutely true. So Tyron Montgomery out of John Carroll, guys, I mentioned to him earlier. So I did like 10 minutes with him. He never played a snap of high school football. He got to college off of flag football tape. And
it's amazing.
He's a crazy prospect.
Amazing.
People should go to the YouTube feed. I believe it's at the hour 5-minute mark. That's what Pearson told me. Find that interview. It's great on the most recent episode. Jennings Dunker. Just Google Jennings Dunker on your phone and look at his picture.
Yes, I have already.
Not being the chance of this guy not being a successful offensive lineman has got to be like 2%. And then I found this. I was talking to him. I found a story about him. Like, he doesn't watch TV. He just reads books. He won like a bale of hay throwing contest. Like, there are some great Jennings Dunker story out there. It is just it's fantastic. He was good. Another guy we had on from Stephen F. Austin, Charles Demings. He had a meeting to get to, so I only got about 5 minutes with him. But I believe we finished our conversation, and he shook my hand. I thanked him for doing it. He's the most positive kid in the world. He goes, make sure you keep doing what God asked you to do to make this world a better place. And then he walked away. I'm like,
love it.
Okay.
Love it.
It was fantastic. So those are 3 of the guys that kind of jump out to me off the top of my head. But look, most of these kids are just, awesome people. Oh, the other guy had fun talking too. And but Paul, you'll love this. Brett Thorson, the Aussie punter out of Georgia.
Yeah.
We actually had like a 2-minute conversation about Brad Wing. So that was a fun conversation that we had as well.
Oh my! Another question from me, John, and I don't know if this is a fair question to ask, but in looking at all these guys over the course of the last week or so, and talking to a bunch of scouts and other NFL personnel who have been around, and again, this may not be a fair question, but we always talk about when you have a high pick, is there going to be an opportunity to move down? We've thought for the last month or so that there would not be. Are you getting any? Well, that's it. Are you getting any indication that this is the kind of draft? Okay, there you go. That's why I said I don't know if it's a fair question because we kind of already have been saying it wouldn't be all along.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like everyone has asked me, so what do you think the Giants are thinking of 5 this year? My answer is that I don't know. I don't think the Giants know. I think once you get past like the top rated players in this draft, which are probably like Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Love, it's kind of a mess. And remember, and those top 3 players, what do they play? Off-ball linebacker, safety, and running back.
Yeah.
So there are no slam dunk like offensive tackles, defensive ends, wide receivers that I think are going to be graded super high in the draft class. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, John, when you look at overall, though, you mentioned, and back to in terms of, you said the top 10 in a normal year, this would be, they would probably be ranked 8 to 15. Where's the drop-off? How many players do you think will get a true first-round grade when you're looking at this upcoming NFL draft?
That's a really good question, Moose. I would probably say 15 to 18. Okay. I haven't finished my work on that yet, but my guess is that it'll fall somewhere in there. Probably closer to the lower end would be my guess, but most of those guys will end up being, guys that will usually be ranked like 12 to 20. You know what I mean? Not necessarily top 10 guys. So I think you're going to have a lower group. I think if you're picking 1 through 12, you might be disappointed. But if you're picking like 13 to 17, you probably are still going to get a guy that kind of whose value meets where you're picking.
All right, John, before we let you go, we still have the Combine coming up in about a month, and you and I are going to spend an awful lot of time out there in Indianapolis. Of all the folks who did not make it to either one of these All-Star games, because we know there's a slew of guys who are blue chippers who don't go to these games. Of that group of guys, who are the 1 or 2 players that you are most eager to get a look at the Combine? And is there scuttlebutt about, like, guys can't wait to see what those guys do in terms of their testing because they didn't get a chance to see them at the All-Star games?
Ruben Bain, his measurements will be huge. Mm-hmm. There's rumors going around that his spring measurements, where his arm is measured only like 31.5 inches.
Whoa!
Which for a defensive end is generally considered a death sentence, but he was so good at Miami. I mean, nobody could block him. So that's the guy whose measurements at the Combine are going to be really important. Keldrick Falk, Peter Woods. Falk is the defensive end out of Auburn. Mm-hmm. Woods is the defensive tackle out of Clemson. Neither one of those guys had great production this year, so I think it'll be very important for them to test particularly well. And then, of course, the wide receivers, guys. We didn't have any of the day one, round one, or probably even round 2 wide receivers at this game. So Jordan Tyson, Carnell Lake, Denzel Boston, Mekhi Lemon, Casey Concepcion, even Omar Cooper from Indiana, Elijah Surratt didn't show up. I think he's more of a third-round pick, but, those, I'm probably missing a couple, too. But those are the really tall kid from Tennessee. Those are the kids that I think, teams want to see those guys test really well in the 3-cone, test really well in the 40. So keep an eye on the wide receivers at the Combine, too. Those are the guys that I think I'd really keep an eye on. Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, that's another guy who I think could test extremely well with the Combine, and people really care about how tight ends do it. And then, look, I don't think it's super important because, safeties, I don't think their testing is necessarily hugely important. You look at how much success Kyle Hamilton's had. He had never tested really well. How can the Downs test? If he tests well, that could secure him as a top 5 pick. If he tests poorly, could that maybe push him down to the 10 to 14 area? I think that's possible. So those are the guys I would note. And Jeremiah Left, too, obviously, right? Because I think he's going to test ridiculously well. So keep an eye on him in terms of how he does. And I think he could really, maybe again push himself into that top 5, top 7 conversation if he tests really well with the Combine.
John, last one for me, as Paul asked you, and you're getting set to hop on your plane, would be this. How important is not the interviews that you did on Giants.com, but the interviews these individual prospects are going to do with requisite teams here moving forward?
It's not taking a baby.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're really important. And, teams are trying to – this is kind of the introduction stage, right? I talked to a lot of the guys at the Senior Bowl about what NFL teams were asking them, and most of these interviews will kind of get to know you interviews with these guys, learn about their background, the type of people that they are, stuff like that. Thank you, ma'am. And, that's kind of what the interviews are like now. Some teams are putting guys on the board, like write up your favorite play. This is our defense. Draw up your defense. Oh, now draw up our defense. Can you remember it after you drew up yours? That sort of stuff. So, finding the guys that are good character guys and more importantly really care about the game and are going to do what's necessary to become good football players. That's really the important part of the interview process, right? To find out which guys really have the passion. As Paul and Luke, we both do this, right? Guys can come in, be really talented, but if they don't work at it, they don't care. They'll never get paid. So that's why those interviews are really so important.
John, enjoy your mini bag of pretzels. We'll see you back here in a little bit.
A little Bischoff cookie for Schmeelk? Absolutely. All right, talk to you guys in a little bit.
Take care, John.
See you, John. Safe travels home.
John Schmeelk, traveling around the world. Where is John is the big question every morning. He was at the Shrine Bowl and at the Senior Bowl and now making his way back to Jersey. I will tell you, from being at the Combine, and John and I have done that for many years, that in itself is quite a bear to work. But when you have to uproot yourself and go to two different places and deal with the 11-hour delay between the Shrine and the Senior.
It's yeoman's work.
That, to
John
me,
did a great job.
Oh, he gets 5 stars for that.
Yeah, no doubt, 100%. First in
without
Texas, then Alabama, now heading home. Going to be 4 degrees tomorrow, and take care of the kiddos tomorrow. Way you go.
I'm sure he handled it calmly. And
yes, no doubt, 100%.
Really, he was so under stressed. I was impressed.
Well, it's the end as well.
Yeah.
He's hopping on a plane, going to watch some little TV, have some cookies, relax, sit back, kick the feet up. Not necessarily kick the feet up, but you get the point. Now he gets to enjoy the travel, so now it's the end. I'm sure he was a little stressed out during the entire process.
Okay, but now when he gets home, it's a 0 blitz with the 2 kids.
Yes. Well, that's what we started right. There's no
so
rest.
That's the stress.
There's no rest for the weary. And I'm sure his wife doesn't want to hear about the travel excursion. The fact she's been dealing with cold weather kids for the better part of the last week and a half.
How many days before he actually wants to go back to the airport?
Oh, Sunday night. Where are you sending me?
Pearson, please give us an update on exactly what it is that John has sent from his travels on the huddle and the draft season.
So 2 days ago, we posted the day 1 interviews, and then yesterday, I think 14 guys at least. He does like 5 or 6 minutes with each one. It's really good stuff.
That's good.
Yep.
And you got anything going up today too, or no?
Yes, today we have an interview with Drew Fabianich, the executive director of the Senior Bowl.
Awesome stuff.
Yep.
201-939-4513 is our phone number. Let's get to some phone calls if we have any. Let's see. Lou from Pennsylvania, you are first on our program. Hello.
Hello. Hey, everyone.
What's up, Lou?
My question is a few questions. It's Denard Wilson or Leonard, the new DC? I don't know if that got confirmed yet. I just want to know a little bit of information behind him. I'm sorry. I know he's from Tennessee, and Shane Bowen was not particularly the most favorite person around here. What's the sign on Denard Wilson? Is he more of a press corner? Because we need press corners. Because we having people, receivers doing too much free releases.
He does prefer press man coverage. That is his style. He is not a heavy blitzer. He is more of a strategic blitzer. He's also very good at using pre-snap deception. Those are his characteristics. And neither is that confirmed nor denied by the Giants. Those are only reports right now. And so for that reason, there's really nothing else we could say about him other than his characteristics. And, of course, he was secondary coach with the Ravens at one point for Harbaugh.
Yeah, he was. Defensive backs coach in 23. Before that, worked with the Philadelphia Eagles. Was really thought of well when he was on the Jet staff as a high riser early on in the 2020s. So, I think this is an attractive job given the assets. If it ends up being officially named that Denard Wilson is the Giants' defensive coordinator, familiarity with Harbaugh dating back to their days with the Baltimore Ravens, and obviously with the pieces that the Giants have up front where you can be at times, Paul, a little bit creative, especially when you have the ability to go after and get to the quarterback. Sometimes you can break down football and it can be pretty easy, right? Protect yours, get after theirs. We talk about the importance of the offensive line, and John Harbaugh has talked about it in a myriad of different interviews, including the latest one that he did with Howard Eskin down there in Philadelphia, where he talked about that that's important, winning up front, right? Offensive and defensive lines. When you think about the Giants winning Super Bowls in 2007, 2011, we can all talk about the great catches by Tyree and Manningham, one in Glendale, one in Indianapolis, but the Giants really won those games because of their ability, the offensive and defensive lines, to go out there and dictate up front. And I think that's going to be a staple of what John Harbaugh wants to do. And I would imagine if it ends up being Denard Wilson as the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants, and that gets named officially, which is where all the reports are leading you to believe, there are assets up front for Denard Wilson to be pretty excited about.
Is that all?
And there's a couple more things.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to take it off there. This is the one reason I'm not happy with Joe Shane. By making McKinney walk out the door and put in different people in, now we have to worry about who our safety is.
Okay, hold on. I'm
Two.
going to ask you to hit the pause button, then I'll let you finish. McKinney wanted to be the highest paid safety in the league. The Packers had the money. The Packers had the money under the salary cap to throw him the cash that he wanted plus the keys to Fort Knox. And that's what they did. So please be very...
We didn't use it.
No, but you don't understand. Wait a second. Even using the franchise tag means you now have a 1-year deal for guaranteed money near the very top of the market for that particular position. The Giants were in no position salary cap-wise to do that. So you're criticizing Joe for not offering him enough, but he couldn't offer him enough. There's nothing that Joe could have done financially that would have allowed McKinney to stay. He was going to get bigger offers elsewhere.
Okay. I think because we have Javon Holland, I know it's a new coach. He has new eyes. He's going to change stuff up. So I know change is coming. But I just don't think we could fix the team with just one draft class. I think we have a safety who's on the books already. We need a middle linebacker or somebody to stop the run. And my last question is, are we keeping Carmen Brasillo? And I'll take everything else off the air. Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
Well,
you want to take the last one first?
Well, the answer to that, according to all the reports, is no. In terms of Carmen Brasillo. And the latest reports after Brian Daboll landed down in Tennessee as the offensive coordinator for Robert Saleh is that a number of former Giants assistants are going to be landing down in Tennessee with Brian Daboll. So, and one of those reportedly, I haven't seen this morning. I don't know if it's officially been.
Nor have I.
Yeah, so, but the report as of last night was that Carmen Brasillo was going to be the offensive line coach for the Tennessee Titans next year. So we'll see exactly if that, just because it gets reported doesn't necessarily mean it ends up being true, right? So I haven't seen that officially named by the Tennessee Titans, but they did officially name Brian Daboll as their offensive coordinator for Robert Saleh, who had his introductory press conference. So, back to the safety question, Javon Holland, as, Paul, a very elite playmaking safety that was brought in last offseason from the Miami Dolphins, who's played under a number of different defensive coordinators. And whoever the defensive coordinator ends up being, if it officially gets named Denard Wilson as the Giants DC, has played in a multitude of different systems. But Holland is a safety that you can use in a myriad of different ways. You can use him up front in the, and bring him up front. He can be a guy that can go out there and help you in the run. He can obviously help you in the passing game, play in center field. He's got tremendous range when he's 100% healthy. There's a lot to like about Javon Holland here. It's interesting to see exactly just how creative you mentioned in terms of it ends up being Wilson. He's a press cover, likes the press coverage, doesn't necessarily in terms of utilizing the blitz, but the Giants have the playmakers up front to be able to, not necessarily where they have to send odd man guys, where they have to send 6 or 7 guys up after the quarterback due to the elite playmaking ability, especially when you have a guy, which I'm excited about to see what Abdul Carter is going to be year number 2.
I think there are 2 things about this Giants defense that we should all be very curious about. And this goes without even adding additional pieces. Number 1, we barely got a chance to see Kayvon Thibodeau, Carter, and Burns on the field at the same time last year.
That's true, 100%.
We talked about this all last July and August. How are they going to use these 3 guys? And we were told, and rightfully so, that it's not that difficult to scheme all 3 on the field at the same time. The problem was, because of injuries, we didn't get a chance to see it.
No.
And I'm still very, very eager to see what those 3 guys can do to cause trouble.
Well, and Paul, I think you're just as frustrated as I am, as Giant fans are, with Kayvon Thibodeau, and injuries are injuries, right? And part of the greatness of great players is being available and being on the field, right?
It is. And contract year, though, for him now, because it's his 5th-year option.
Right, so no question. So he's got to do it. So it'll be interesting to see just how creative you can be. And you need Kayvon Thibodeau, and I'm sure he's banking on it as well, to be able to go out there and play 17 games and keep his body healthy, and that's going to be a point of focus throughout the course of this offseason.
So that's number 1. Number 2, you mentioned the middle linebacker spot. Now, that's another curiosity for me because I thought the last month or so of the season, Bobby Okereke looked like he was the Bobby Okereke of a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
When he was playing under Wink Martindale. Under Shane Bowen, Bobby Okereke was one of those guys who, in my opinion, did not perform up to the level of his name or his contract.
No.
But once Charlie Bullen took over as the interim defensive coordinator, I started to recognize Bobby Okereke again. He's 29 plus years old. That's not too old. That's not an age where you necessarily have to write him off and say he doesn't have it left anymore. I'm going to tell you, I'm very curious to see if that last month of last season, under hopefully a defensive coordinator, whoever it turns out to be, we think it's Wilson, can be Bobby Okereke again for at least another season. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be looking for another middle linebacker down the road, because you need someone, further on down. But at the moment, Okereke is under contract. He's making a pretty good buck. And when he is himself, he's a pretty darn good player.
He was, and he is. There's no doubt. And I think you saw an uptick, especially because in the change in defensive coordinator, the change in scheme. It was long overdue after that decision was made. Not to throw shade at Shane Bowen, but he just wasn't getting enough out of this team, and they wasn't getting enough out of these defensive players. And you saw a completely and utterly different defense over the final, over the final back half of the season after that decision was made by interim head coach Mike Kafka. So you look at it, yes, Okereke can prove to be a solution. There's no doubt at the inside linebacker position. He had that interception against the Raiders, and he looked more like the kind of sideline to sideline playmaking inside linebacker that we had seen with the Indianapolis Colts, and you had seen briefly here with the New York Giants.
I absolutely believe that. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because I have seen him play at such a high level before and then saw it again at the end of last season. I'm going to say I give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't think it's a stretch to think that he could be that guy again this fall.
But to hit home your point, Paul, here's what great teams do. It's not necessarily just who your starters
they
are.
Replenish.
It's your ability to go out there and draft and develop depth. Because good teams have depth. Injuries are going to happen in the National Football League, right? It's just too barbaric.
Michael McFadden went down.
Right, it's too barbaric of a sport. It's going to happen, right? It's going to rear its ugly head. So that's where this process is, whether it be, undrafted free agents, whether it be the NFL draft, whether it be free agency, where it's finding value on guys that are sitting on the practice squad. This is where you do your due diligence as an organization, and not only obviously having a game plan where you have your top starters, where you have your 11 on offense, 11 on defense, but being able to go out there and develop offensive line depth should an injury happen, defensive line depth, linebacker depth, to where there is not a significant drop-off from your starter to your backup.
I'm going to give you one other item regarding the Giants' rush defense, because it was terrible the last couple of years, and no one is running from that. It's got to get better, and I am one who absolutely wants to see them get another powerful defensive lineman to add to that front seven. I am totally on board with that. But I do want to add, one of the other potential upticks for the Giants this fall is the fact that I still, and you know this, I've been consistent about it the entire year, I don't think Dexter Lawrence was 100%. That was not the Dexter Lawrence that we've seen for the last couple of years. Now, was he injured? No. No, because he wasn't on the injury report for most of the season. But was he 100%? I don't think so. And I think a rebound from Dexter Lawrence is not only warranted, but it's critical for the Giants to get better.
Well, right, and the other aspect of the other way to make that argument would be this, is that if he wasn't, then it's really concerning, right? So you're going to bank on the idea that Lawrence is too good of a player to be the product or be the player that we saw for the majority of this past season, right? He's too talented of a player. So, guys are dealing with things throughout the course of the year. They just are. And something clearly was not right from what you saw from Dexter Lawrence throughout the course of the season. He's too good of a player, too good of an interior defensive lineman, an elite level player. And I'd agree with you. If you get Dexter Lawrence at his full flight in 2026 here for John Harbaugh and for this coaching staff and for Giant fans, they're going to be celebrating.
Let's just say this. That guy, as big as he is, his pride quotient is probably twice the size. If you could see him after every game when the Giants lost, you understood how important it was for him to put out. And I got to be honest, I think he's got to be burning at the gut to try to have a rebound season.
Well,
I
Paul,
think he's going to be determined.
Yeah, and here's the other aspect of it. Just as you know and I know, right, the Giant fan base, everyone that's watching us today on this Friday on YouTube, and every Giant season ticket holder, and we talked about the letter that John Harbaugh sent out. They're emboldened, right? They're excited about the hiring of John Harbaugh as a head coach. I would imagine each and every one of these players as well, because losing can beat you down. Losing and not playing relevant games and playing out the season can beat you down. You put too much effort in the off season throughout the course of the year. You want to yield results. So I would imagine each and every member of this Giant team, from top on down, but when you're talking about player specific, is clearly excited about what the opportunity that presents itself with Harbaugh taking over as head coach.
Just remember one thing, folks: disgust can be the birth of motivation.
Yes,
remember that. Line one.
Good line, Paul. I'm going to write that one down.
Rob in Connecticut, you're next on the program. Hello.
Gentlemen, P-Dot and Mr. Malusis, how goes it today?
Very good to talk
Doing
to you.
great,
How are
Robbie.
you?
Hey, by the way, I think it's humor. You guys are talking about traveling. Well, I've been in some of the worst airports in the world. Retired Navy Chief Petty Officer here. You guys are.
Oh, thank you for your service.
It's like, well, you're welcome. So the worst airport in the world is in. Let's see here. It's in Suda Bay, Crete. And the best airport in the world is Munich. But
okay,
yeah, I'm telling you what, it's you guys, you haven't seen anything in terms of how bad travel can really be.
I'm sure, Rob. I'm sure you have some stories. And as Paul mentioned, thank you for your service to our country.
No worries. I just hear that and I find it's funny. I wish I had those problems back then. Anyway, right? So I heard there was WFAN. There was somebody on a couple of days ago said that the Giants should be embarrassed. I just think that's ridiculous. I mean, getting a head coaching job is not a disgrace for the New York Giants. I mean, I don't want to name names, but I'm sure you heard about that. I wanted your thoughts on that, and then I was going to ask you about a draft.
Well, I'm not really sure, and I'm not sure if Paul knows what you're referencing.
I do not.
What are you referencing, Rob?
I do not.
Okay, Craig Carton said that it's an embarrassment for John Harbaugh because he couldn't get his guy, even though the guy is a head coach. I mean, what is somebody supposed to do?
Rob, listen, Todd Monken is in his 60s. He's looking to be a head coach in the National Football League. I think John Harbaugh is understanding the fact that there's only 32 of them. You get an opportunity to be a head coach, and Monken has paid his dues, that he's going to take that opportunity. Whether how great of an opportunity, well, we can debate about that, but he's going to take that opportunity to be a head coach in the National Football League, and I think John Harbaugh and the Giants are very, very understanding of that fact.
You could make a case that this might be Monken's last chance at a head coaching job.
No doubt.
Why wouldn't he take
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, so like if all of a sudden now he gets, and it's not he gets to do what he wants to do, and all these guys, they all get into coaching. At some point in time, you want to be the head man in charge. You want to be the CEO. You want to be the head coach. So regardless of level, whether it be college or whether it be the National Football League. So I don't think there's any kind of embarrassment whatsoever, from John Harbaugh. I think he's understanding and happy for his friend and a guy that he brought in from to Baltimore from Georgia, happy for his friend that he's now a head coach in the NFL.
Appreciate the call, Rob. Thank you. We got to run. We got some more people on the line. We do have news, Moose.
Yes, the Vikings have fired their general manager.
Adolfo Mensa has been canned by the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm really not sure exactly what went into that because,
the fact that Sam Darnold's in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, but here's the problem. Here's the problem, though, Moose. They went out on a ledge the previous year and drafted J.J. McCarthy to be the guy. So if you draft him with conviction that he's the guy and he comes off that injury, you now have to clear the way for him to play to find out what he's got. If they had kept Sam Darnold, then McCarthy would have just sat there to rot, wouldn't he?
Yes, I would agree. And I say that, Joe. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I would think the fact that this firing comes just speculating here, Paul, that this is more about control within the organization than anything else.
Probably.
And I don't think this is necessarily just a reaction. I think that's a hit. I mean, and people are throwing shade at the New York Jets for Darnold being in the Super Bowl. That's all well and good, and Joe Douglas and everything like that. But the Minnesota Vikings had Sam Darnold in their building last year. And they decided, and I don't disagree with you, but from what you saw from J.J. McCarthy this year, there's still a big-time learning curve for him.
I was never a McCarthy fan.
No, I'm not saying
I thought
you were.
they made a mistake by taking him, but once you take him, you're not committed.
And I think now you look at it, you saw his struggles this year at the quarterback position, inability to go out there and get Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison after he came off the suspension, the football for the Minnesota Vikings. There's now deep concern about, as good as that staff is, when you're looking at O'Connell as the head coach and you're looking at Flores is still the defensive coordinator out there in Minnesota, or I think he's a free agent, and they have to re-sign him, but they're looking unless he lands a head coaching opportunity. But great coaching staff, but the quarterback situation in Minnesota, not ideal.
All right, real quick, let's go back to the phones. Jason in Virginia, you're next on the show. Hello.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. How y'all doing?
Good, Jason. How are you, buddy?
Good. Really quick, Paulie, I want to ask about one of your guys from his playing time here.
Yes.
The rumor mill has Davis Webb as a potential interview for OC.
We've seen the reports.
I just wanted to say, Paul, do you think he's had enough time in coaching to sort of step up into that, increased position of taking over and running an entire offense? And I know, you were a big fan of his while he was here.
I was.
Just promise me one thing: if he does get the job, there'll be no calls to have him as our emergency quarterback.
Thanks for the call. Okay, here's the deal with Davis Webb. From the very moment that he stepped onto campus here with the Giants, he was destined to be a coach. His dad's a head coach. He has always wanted to be a coach. He was grooming himself, if you will, to be a head coach whenever his playing days were over. One thing that people don't know about Davis, and we may have mentioned this once or twice on the program, but I would forgive you if you didn't listen to that show that day. Davis used to actually put together his own scouting report and game plan, aside from what the scouts and the coaches gave the quarterbacks when Eli Manning was here. And he would then go and sit down with Eli.
Love it.
Okay? Because we all know what a workaholic Eli was.
Yeah.
Davis would then sit down with Eli and say, okay, I know you got this, that, and the other thing. I also did my own work. Here's my stuff. And he would sit down with Eli as if he was not just a player, but also the quarterback's coach. And if you can imagine the amount of X's and O's conversation in that room between Eli Manning and Davis Webb, look, folks, I'm sorry. I am an unabashed president of the Davis Webb fan club. I have always loved this guy in every way, shape, and form. I would love nothing more than to see him back in East Rutherford. Now, right now, he's the property of the Broncos. He is their pass game coordinator. We see the reports he's been asked for a number of interviews for either head coaching or offensive coordinator positions. If you're going to ask me what do I think about Davis Webb, double thumbs up. I would never have any problem at all hiring him in any capacity that you could imagine.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know Davis Webb as well as you do, Paul, but you hear nothing but glowing things of him, and he's still in the running to become the head coach, according to reports of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh,
and
he pulled out.
Oh, he did?
He withdrew his name from the Raiders.
Did. Okay, there you go. So I missed that one, but he's still out there, and the Denver Broncos did let go of their offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi. We talked about that a couple of days ago.
Reportedly named one today, though.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
Okay, so there you go. So we'll see exactly what happens with Davis Webb. I think the Giants are an attractive job when you're looking at it as an offensive coordinator, because I think, number one, you have Dart. Number two is I think John Harbaugh is going to let you operate as you see fit. I loved what Harbaugh had to say in a recent interview where he's talking about an offense and not necessarily looking for a pure system guy, looking for a guy that can take advantage of all the talents that Jackson Dart can do, whether it be RPO, whether it be running, getting him into the shotgun. Doesn't necessarily need to bring in an offensive coordinator where it's got to be this, and you got to find players to fit my system, an offensive coordinator that can be multiple. And that's really what you want to do, be amoeba-like, similar to what you saw with the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick, to where you can operate offensively and defensively based on the opponent that you're going up against in any given week.
All right, we go back to the phones. Coach Marvin's on line 3. You're next on BBKL. Hello.
How you doing, Paul, Mo? How you guys doing?
We're good. How are you?
Coach, what's going on, man?
I'm doing good. The podcast is supposed to be tonight, so got that going on tonight.
Nice.
Well, I just want to make it quick because I know you had some call. You're talking about the defense earlier, and again, Paul, you've known me for quite a few years. You've never heard me say that any of our coaches need to be fired. I don't get into that because I know how that feels. So we have a new defensive coordinator. You were talking about Bobby Okereke, how well he played outstanding in those last few games to me. He was everywhere in those games. I don't know if this is the blame of the system with the new coordinator we have. I'm glad it's a defensive back. He has a defensive background because I believe the person I'm rooting for really hard. I'm rooting for the team, but really hard is Banks. Now he's going to be playing a press coverage type of defense, which is what he is. So I'm hoping that this guy can help Banks get back on track because a lot of guys was off track these last couple of years. The defense, Okereke, Lawrence, I know Dexter was a little hurt, but Dexter was down. Thibodeau didn't really play that great to me. He played good, but not great.
Coach, throw Paulson Adebo in there too, okay? Throw Adebo in there because he was a press man corner with the Saints, and he did not live up to his billing last year either.
I agree with that, Paul. Yeah, you could throw him in there. And there were some guys that they wasn't inspired, seemed like to me. Some people would say they get in those situations and they had this look like, here we go again. I just think it's just being inspired to play the game harder than they were playing it. It seemed like they were guessing and thinking while they were playing.
I mean, Coach,
you can't play that way.
Yeah, I mean, Coach, I think they played slow because I think it was a matter of thinking too much when you're on the field. Like, and regardless of sport, what you want to talk about, football, for instance, which we're discussing here, is you never want to put an athlete to where they're on the field where everything becomes second nature, where they're not thinking, because what you want to have is your players playing fast, right? And you see it in Major League Baseball where they overindulge with the analytics, and guys are up at the plate and they're thinking too much instead of doing what their naturally God-given ability have the ability to go out there and do. And I think at times you saw that with Shane Bowen as the defensive coordinator with the New York Giants, where they weren't playing fast and loose, didn't play with a ton of confidence because there wasn't a lot of results that they can build that confidence with, and maybe they were a little confused with the scheme that they were playing. And that needs to come to an end if it ends up being Denard Wilson as the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants, because you want to have, regardless of the style he plays, you want to make sure your defense is going out there playing fast and loose and playing to their full flight of ability.
And I agree with that. And that's how and on the offensive side, that's what I want them to do, is have their eyes in the wrong place and their feet standing still. And that's what our defense was doing. You're actually right, Mo, is that they were playing as they were thinking, as they were playing. And if you are thinking and not reacting, you're in a bad place.
Yeah.
The last part I wanted to talk about, I didn't hear John at the end, in the beginning, because I came on the show late. I heard him talking about this kid, Jennings Dunker.
Yes.
Iowa looks good. Their offensive line, they have also a guy, I don't know if John talked about him, Logan Jones. Did he talk about Logan Jones?
He did not talk about Jones. Dunker, for those of you who don't know about Dunker, he looks like he might be somewhat of a relative of Nick Gates. Okay, he's that kind of guy, right? He's one of those guys who just looks like he's a real slobber knocker along the line of scrimmage.
Right. Well, did he ever talk about? There's another player, Lee Hunter.
I don't remember him mentioning him either.
Yeah, defensive tackle. He flashed.
Did he mention him?
No, he did not.
No.
But according to if you follow the other Senior Bowl reports out there online, Lee Hunter flashed a little bit during the practice on Tuesday down there in Mobile.
Yeah, those guys look good. My last player I'd like everybody to know about is I wouldn't mind getting them like they got Scatterbo, is Jacob Rodriguez.
The
I don't
linebacker.
know how long he'll last, but I like him.
He is one guy who I don't think people, if they're into the measurables, right? He doesn't have any of those classic measurables. He just makes plays.
Right.
He's just around the ball. He just gets his nose
player.
into the business. And so that's the Scatterboo
type of player. Dart brings that energy that way. I mean, these guys are not super athletic. It's just they play with their hearts. And
to your
you can't
point,
measure heart.
to your point, Coach Marvin, they love football. And I think the new coach loves
well,
that
he
phrase.
emphasized that when he got introduced. Yeah, you better love football. It's going to be all about football 24/7
Coach, thank you.
moving forward.
We'll talk to you again soon, Coach. Thank you so much. You want to do the Rutgers read again?
Sure. Special Olympics. New Jersey's annual Snow Bowl is heading to Rutgers SHI Stadium 2026. The annual flag football tournament will be on the field of Rutgers SHI Stadium from March 6th through the 8th, 2026. The 6-on-6 tournament will feature competitive recreational co-ed divisions, and all proceeds and benefits thousands of Special Olympians, New Jersey athletes across the Garden State. Register your team today at njsnowbowl.org. That's njsnowbowl.org. That's njsnowbowl.org.
You know, it's funny. Over the years, the Giants have had a number of those types of events at their stadium.
Yes.
And, man, those folks have one dynamite time.
Oh, it's great.
I mean, they are as excited as can be, and look, it's a great thing to do. And folks, anybody who has an opportunity to either go see it or to participate, I'm sure you'll have a great time as well. So it's great that they are able to hold these
it's a fun
kind
event.
of
You
events.
go out there, play. I mean, listen, flag football is exploding. I mean, John mentioned it to kick off the program about the running back at a John Carroll who didn't play in high school, came and after playing 4 years of flag football. It's great. Kids love it. Oh, I got 3 boys at home, Paul. They all love playing flag football. All their friends love playing flag football. It's become more and more heavily involved, even as you go through high school and into college. I mean, it's just amazing. The NFL developing a flag football. It's fun to do, and any of these kind of tournaments obviously benefiting a great cause as well.
No doubt.
And should be a great event down there at SHI Stadium in Piscataway.
201-939-4513. We got a few minutes. We'll sneak in a caller or two if we can. Back to the mock drafts.
Yeah,
we were talking about this earlier till John wound up getting on from the plane. And I'm trying to go back to ESPN, but I'm having trouble here with the computer.
They had Mendoza as the first overall pick.
Yes, he was. I will. Here we go. I finally got it back up again. I will tell you that Daniel Jeremiah, as far as he was concerned, he had Cornell Tate. No, this is Kuiper. Kuiper on ESPN had Cornell Tate, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. I believe that's who John was talking about, and I think he slipped a little bit with a Freudian slip when he said Cornell.
I think
he said
he was.
Cornell Lake, who used to play defensive back for the
Tate.
Steelers.
Right.
He really means Cornell Tate, the wide receiver for Ohio State, who by all accounts is easily a top 10 pick in this draft. And quite frankly, as I've told people this week, if I had to do it now, if I were sitting in that chair for the Giants today, I'd probably lean that way, but I'll have a lot more to say when we get to the combine.
Who's his top 5?
Closer.
He's got Tate going 5th overall,
So,
Mendoza 1. Who's his top 5?
He's got Mendoza 1 to the Raiders, of course. The Jets taking Reese,
okay,
the linebacker out of Ohio State. We've got Maruinoa.
Yeah,
I believe that's how he says it, the tackle out of Miami, and I should do a better job with that name because we're going to say it a lot. And then Bailey, the outside linebacker from Texas Tech to the Titans at 4 after the Cards take the offensive tackle, and then Tate to the Giants at 5. I don't have a problem with the pick.
No, I wouldn't have a problem with the pick. No, I mean, Cornell Tate, and it's coming out of, if you've looked at 2 colleges collegially that have produced tremendous NFL wide receivers. You've looked at LSU, you've looked at Ohio State. So, he does have the benefit of playing alongside, who I think, athletically speaking, is just a marvel in Jeremiah Smith out there for the Buckeyes. But I don't think that takes away from what he potentially could be in the National Football League. I'm interested to follow the draft process of Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, former Alabama Crimson Tide, to see exactly where he lands. And they have him going 10th overall. I think it's going to be a fascinating one when you're looking at, as John mentioned, where prototypically when you're looking at this first round of the NFL draft, and the top 10 might be going 8 through 15 in prototypical years, where he said it tapped out, and where you're looking at first round grades of anywhere from 15 through 18, right? And John hasn't, as he mentioned, hasn't finished his work on the first round. I'm interested to see where Caleb Downs, a traditional, you're not drafting a safety really, really high, right? We saw Kyle Hamilton coming out of Notre Dame. He dropped a little bit in the draft, ended up going to the Baltimore Ravens, been an unbelievable player, whether it be up near the line of scrimmage, and a tremendous playmaker.
Great player.
Caleb Downs is a great college football player.
Yes, he is.
And I'm fascinating to see, based on the overall complexion of this draft, to where a team decides to go up and get a guy that I think ultimately is going to help your team, and where he grades out physically and where he grades out after he goes through this interview process.
Well, it's interesting. We mentioned last week when I was on with John how the Baltimore Ravens have almost habitually had a Pro Bowler in their secondary.
No doubt.
And this goes back years, even with Brian Billick.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just something that they do. They find a great playmaker, a game changer, an impact player in the secondary. That's one of their staples.
I mean, the greatest, right, and Paul, one of the greatest safeties that I've ever seen. And I love Sean Taylor with Washington, God rest his soul, and he was an unbelievable player at Miami, right? But Ed Reed from Miami might arguably be one of the smartest and best safeties that I've ever seen play in the National Football League. And he was a Baltimore Raven and a tremendous playmaker. And now you're looking at what Kyle Hamilton does down there in Baltimore. A little bit bigger than Ed, but clearly a big-time playmaking safety. So I'm curious to see exactly where Caleb Downs does land. But you're right about that. Historically speaking, Harbaugh, the Ravens, have had that, even dating down back to the days, as you mentioned, of Billick. They've had that caliber of safety.
All right, quickly we go to, Daniel Jeremiah, who has Fernando Mendoza at 1 to the Raiders. Then he goes with Reese to the Jets at 2, which we've seen before. But how about this? Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle out of Utah, he's got 3 to the Cardinals.
Okay.
Which, by the way, he's one of the 2 tackles that everybody says is going to go in the top 10. Okay. Then we've got Maui Noah to the Titans at number 4. And then he's got the Giants taking Mansour Delane, the corner out of LSU, at number 5. And again, another guy who should be in the top 10 of everybody's mock draft. Whether or not you think that's good value for the Giants because of positional need or not, I don't think anybody doubts the fact that he is a blue-chip prospect.
Yeah, a blue-chip prospect and a guy elite-level cover corner, and could potentially, if all the reports are true, fit the system that Wilson's looking to play here. If he ends up being the defensive coordinator for the Giants, the system that he's looking to play here in New York for this team defensively. I think it's interesting when you look at the Titans, just on another team for a second. You look at the amount of times that Cam Ward got hit this year was an inordinate amount of times, and the beating that he took down there in Tennessee. Even this is not a great, as John mentioned earlier on in the show, Paul, this is not a great offensive line draft. I'd be surprised at the Titans, if there's not a tackle there, and Jeremiah has it, that they don't address the offensive line early in this draft.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. I think we should mention, just for the case of argument's sake, Jeremiah does have Downs going 11 to the Dolphins, just outside the top 10.
Just outside. So one has going to Cincinnati at 10, the other one has 11 to the Miami Dolphins.
He goes with the Bengals. That is Jeremiah with Gerard McCoy out of Tennessee, corner. And, I don't know that I've heard him go that high with anybody else.
I haven't seen that high. But we're early on. And listen, I think there's going to be, based on this draft, is that there's going to be a lot of different opinions on a lot of different players in terms of the caliber of those players. So this might not be the draft that you want to have where you're going to get the overall quality, where there are some drafts, Paul, as you know better than anybody, where you're going where there's potentially 30, 35 prospects that have first-round grades. It doesn't seem to be that's going to be this caliber of draft, where maybe the strength of this draft is, back half of the first round through maybe the third or fourth round. But when you look at it, I think that leads you to believe that there might be players that you're not expecting that all of a sudden jump up because there's not your prototypical kind of line of separation between the haves and the have-nots.
We are very fond of talking about free agency on this draft because, after all, free agency comes first.
Yes.
And quite honestly, folks, the old saying from Ernie Accorsi was, you don't want to draft hungry. You don't draft needy. And if you don't do well in free agency, what happens? All of a sudden now you're starving to fill a position, and then you wind up overdrafting and making a mistake because you're too desperate to fill a hole.
Yeah, and Paul, that drives me crazy as well, is where you go into it where you are, I want to draft great football players. Because if I draft great football players, then you know what? My entire team's going to be better for it, even if that comes at a position of strength. because I want great competition on my team. And I hate the idea where you see it at times where they've got – and put quarterback on another argument, right? But
yeah.
I hate when you get into this draft process and you're going through and they're like, well, they've got a desperate need, so they're going to reach up and draft this player. No.
Happens all the time.
Play the board, right? Play true to your board. And there oftentimes you see NFL teams not go out there and do that, and it drives you crazy.
Folks, that will do it for today's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. We will be back on Monday. As you know, we are here every single weekday live, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time for 1 hour of New York Giants football talk. It is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. Jot down the number for next time, 201-939-4513. And we come to you, as always, from the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. For Marc Malusis, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll see you again next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live. So long, everybody.